Let's talk about Brock Purdy. These are the Tuesday updates. I know you post them on Twitter, but I like to get them here because I'm too lazy to read Twitter. So, what are the updates for Brock Purdy this week?
Yeah, there's something special for you guys too. I got some historical comparisons that I'll go over afterwards. But Brock Purdy's numbers this week, I do this every week. Completions, he's tied for 18th with 252, down one spot from 17. Attempts, 22nd with 359, up one spot. Completion percentage, second. He's really kind of first. This one's a little funny. It's because our guy, Jake Browning for the Bengals, has taken over for Burrow. He's only thrown 102 times.
He's only played 3 games. Although he's played really good for those 3 games. I don't know if I want to count him. I feel like we should do a 5-game minimum at something.
I've been waiting for 100 attempts, and so he finally crossed that threshold. So I added him this week. But yeah, there's a caveat. There's an asterisk next to this: 102 attempts versus Brock Purdy's, 359 attempts. But yeah, he's at 75.5, and Brock's, depending on how you look at it, he's either first or second at 70.2. Yards, this one jumped up.
What's Dak at? Do you know? Is he at like 70.1 or 70?
I don't have it on here.
I know he's up there too. I just wanted to know how close they were. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, Dak is cooking, man. Yards, though. Yards, he jumped up 4 spots to 3,553. He's now in 3rd place with total yards on the season, which is amazing. Average still in first, 9.9 yards per, attempt, I believe? Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And then yards per game, 5th, up 2 spots, 273. Long, still at the same, 5th with that 76-yarder. Passing touchdowns, though, this one's crazy to me. So now Brock Purdy is tied for 2nd with 25, tied with Josh Allen, only behind Dak Prescott, who has 28. Did you think Brock Purdy was going to be tied with Josh Allen in touchdowns coming into the season?
No. I mean, all in, obviously, you've got rushing touchdowns, which are going to go up. I got to be honest. I mean, no, there's no way that I would have thought that Purdy would be tied there. I also didn't think that there would be no quarterback throwing for 40 touchdowns this season. Like, the numbers are just not where they normally are. It's kind of interesting. Actually passing defense just in general has gotten better, unless you're the Eagles, because your passing defense is atrocious. But pretty much everybody else has gotten better across the league. There's not a lot of big numbers passing this year.
Yeah, and I think it's because it's been the case for a long time now that this is a passing league, and defenses are finally adjusting. Right, they're getting faster at linebacker. The safeties are becoming basically just corners at this point. So the league is adjusting. So we'll see what the next trend is. But yeah, interceptions, man. Brock Purdy is tied for 9th. So with 7, he's down one spot. There's a lot of guys that have 6, and so he's tied at 7 in 9th place. So if he has another good game where he doesn't throw an interception, there's a good chance he'll jump back up in that.
Yeah, for sure.
Sack tied 18th with 26 up. So he's improved on getting sacks. He dropped a few spots. So now he's only in 18th in getting sacks. It's remarkable how unoften Brock Purdy gets sacked, considering the line and the amount of pressure he's under. Man, Sam Howell has been sacked 58 times, 10 times more than the second guy, which is Bryce Young. That line is obviously horrific, and I'm looking forward to December 31st. They're going to get some our pass rushers are going to be stacking some numbers there.
It's not a good line, but also young quarterbacks, and that's actually probably the most impressive thing about what you're talking about with Brock Purdy is that young quarterbacks tend to walk themselves into sacks a lot. I know people last year were like, "Oh, poor Justin Fields, his line." It's like, well, he's accounting for like a fourth of those sacks because he just won't get rid of the ball, or he'll try to make something happen and he'll run backwards. It's not always on the line. Doesn't mean that the line is good by any means in Washington, but I bet you if we were to watch those 50 sacks or however many he has, that a lot of those would be on him holding the ball or trying to make a play. Yeah. Brock is like the exact opposite of that, to where he actually helps his offensive line because he is being decisive with the ball and he's not holding onto it too long. Very rarely does Brock walk himself into a bad sack.
Correct. Yeah. It's a combination of both. But what I do know is on New Year's Eve, the Niners play the Commanders, and they're going to have a field day. They're going to be some padding of stats against the Commanders, bro.
How many sacks? I mean, Chase Young's going to go crazy in that game, I would think, right?
Yes, yeah, right. Revenge game for Chase Young. He's going to get a sack on his boys. But anyways, let's finish this up. This part is QBR and rating first. As usual, Brock Purdy's been at that spot for a long time. He's first in QBR, first in rating. He's trending 4,646 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions in a 17-game season. But these are the numbers I wanted to show to you to just kind of give people a perspective on where Brock Purdy's at. QB records for the 49ers. Completion percentage. Steve Young leads from 1994 with 70.3. Joe Montana in 1989 was 70.2, which is where Brock Purdy is at right now. So he's 70.2.1 behind the all-time record of Steve Young, tied with Joe Montana in 1989. Just to give people a perspective of what this guy is doing this year, it's mind-boggling. Then we look at yards per game. Jeff Garcia has a record 2,000. And I looked at yards per game instead of yards because these guys, who knows how many games they played. They also have 16, injured 16-game seasons. But Brock Purdy, man, is trending 273 yards per game, where Jeff Garcia was 267. So he's 6 yards more per game than Jeff Garcia, which is the all-time 49ers record. And then touchdowns per game. This is where Brock Purdy has a ways to go. Steve Young in 94 was trending he only played 15 games, had 2.4 touchdowns per game. That's the all-time record. He finished with 36 in only 15 games. In 1998, 2.18. He finished with 35 in 16 games. Brock Purdy in 17 games is trending 33, which is 1.94. So he's a little bit behind in that regard, but still impressive to compare yourself with those people.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine he's probably pretty low as far as overall interceptions too. We're on pace for overall interceptions. Might be number one there. I mean, I think I hate to even say it like this because it seems like I'm going to slide him, and that's not what I'm trying to do. Really, I'm sliding everybody before Purdy because what Purdy's done has been phenomenal, right? I want to make sure that I'm clear about that, and I'm not taking anything away from that. The fact that some of these numbers have been around for as long as they have for the 49ers, as great as Montana was, as great as Steve Young was, it just shows how bad the quarterback play has been here. The rules are geared towards passing way more than they've ever been. If you put Steve Young or Joe Montana in today's game, they would go absolutely freaking crazy. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And especially you add Steve Young with his mobility. My gosh, you can't touch the quarterback. It would be stupid.
Yeah.
So the fact that these numbers are still standing today is awesome for those guys, shows how great they were, but also a little embarrassing because the passing, the league has turned into such a passing league, and no quarterback has been able to topple these numbers.
Yeah.
And here is Brock Purdy, who's having a very good season. But, when you compare it to some of the past seasons of elite numbers and elite passing numbers, we just talked about it. The league is down as far as touchdowns and yards and all those things. Yet here he is smashing all the 49ers records because nobody in front of him was worth a damn to take advantage of a passing league. So he's having a great season right now. I mean, Tyreek Hill got injured yesterday and was in and out of that game. Didn't play a ton. He made his mark a little bit on that game, but overall, chances are he's now out of the MVP race. Really, it seems like it's coming down to Purdy and Dak. Now, I do worry that Dak playing for Dallas is going to get the nod because it's the Cowboys and whatever else, but Purdy's right there. I mean, it's Purdy, Dak. In my opinion, it's CMC, but I think the league is going to go with a quarterback, especially now that Tyreek Hill's likely not going to break that 2,000 yards. And it's going to be between Purdy and Dak unless something crazy happens here down the stretch.
It's probably
Why not Purdy? Why not Purdy?
If it ended today, I think it goes Dak because Dak has more touchdowns, less interceptions, and he plays for the Cowboys. For those three reasons, to me, it goes Dak if it ended today. But we'll see. I mean, they got 4 games left. Dak can throw multiple interceptions. Brock can just go off. Who knows what's going to happen?
I want to know how they look at the numbers as well, because we look at it, and I know a lot of people point out like, well, okay, of course Dak has more yards because he's thrown way more times. He's thrown 90 more times, which is true. But then on the flip side, the fact that he's thrown that many more times and has just as high as a completion percentage and less interceptions is also very impressive, right? So that can go both ways. And I'm curious to see how the voters look at that, or if they even take that into account, if they just look at raw numbers. I really have no idea what they take into account. But what I would say is that Brock is every bit as deserving as Dak Prescott is.